Hi, everybody, and welcome to an episode of GEM. My name is Jen Mormillo, and I am here with my friend Claire. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive in and talk about attachment.
Me as well. So, Claire and I met through a law of attraction workshop. And, after meeting, we decided we would get to know each other a little bit more and we started chatting. That led us to discussing relationships and different attachment styles that we have. And so that's what we'll be discussing today. If you want to just give a little background on yourself.
Yes, I am a psychology major. I studied psychology for my undergrad, and I'm going back for my master's in January for clinical and mental health counseling. I actually just got accepted. So,
Congratulations. Oh
yay.
my God.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
We're excited. And one of the big things that I have learned in my 4 years of studying was about myself, and attachment styles definitely was something that resonated with me very heavily from Psych 101.
Well, then we're talking to the right person.
Yes.
For viewers that don't know me either, I actually studied psychology in my undergrad as one of my features. So for attachment styles, I wanted to just level set the conversation a little bit before we actually get into the conversation, why they are important and significant to us. So attachment styles are just these patterns that we tend to develop over time in regards to how we connect with others, how we choose to love, how we handle space, how we actually react emotionally, and then how safe we can feel in connections with people. So they tend to start off in our childhood, but we actually show those types of attachment styles in every single relationship that we have as we grow and continue to be adults. They matter because they influence the partners that we actually choose, the dynamics that we recreate, and the way that we respond to certain emotional triggers. And when we can actually understand our attachment style, we understand why we react the way that we do. And that will allow us to grow, set healthier boundaries, and attract relationships that feel more grounded and secure. So today we will be exploring that topic. And I'm just going to point out, Claire and I are not experts on this. Obviously, she told you her backstory, so she is a little bit more knowledgeable than me, but we're just here as women, like looking to, learn about the love that we share with others and how we connect with others. And that's about it.
Yes. And we hope that some of this resonates with you when you can also continue to build and keep bettering yourself and have better relationships and better quality of life, essentially.
Beautiful segue.
So,
So with that,
yes.
we will begin.
Perfect.
So Claire, my first question for you is, what made you curious about attachment styles?
Again, it goes back to that Psych 101 class. We learned about different attachment styles, and you start, in like child development, and you learn how that is imperative to, because that's your first relationship. And if your parents took care of you, or how well your parents took care of you, really dictated like how you will continue to grow and connect with others when you are older. And I feel like a lot of people look at babies and they don't think that they're as complex as they are.
Or like a real person?
Like a real person. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's just a baby.
Yeah.
But things that parents do and like other people, caregivers, is programming this child essentially.
Right.
And they will develop to have whatever relationship attachment is given to them essentially, and it'll affect them for their life. And
Yeah.
you can develop awareness about this, and you are not locked in or set in stone to one attachment style, but it definitely makes it a lot harder if you are not in secure attachment. as a child.
because we're creating these patterns of behavior that then lead to how we're engaging with others throughout our lives.
Correct.
So that's definitely something that I think probably a lot of viewers are, managing. It's something to manage, really, right? Like you said, you have to become aware of those patterns to actually then change the behavior if
Yeah,
you want.
if you want. And I wasn't really aware about attachment styles until I took this psychology class. So I was 18 years old. It was my first semester, and this was 4 years ago now. So I have learned a lot and I've come a long way, but it's relatively new to me
Yeah.
too.
I mean, and even at that age, right? You went a good portion of your life without having to ever even heard about that or
Yeah.
think about it. So that's pretty, and not everybody even talks about it. So you were kind of
Yes.
blessed to be in a class that they did educate you on that type of like topic.
Yes. And the more I learned about it, the more it just everything kind of like made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you grow up and you realize that your parents are also just people too,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, it really does come down to your
Yeah.
parents. And they, most parents want what's best for their children, but sometimes they don't know what that is. And if you weren't taught,
Right.
child development, you really don't know. It's I don't want to say it's a guessing game, but it's a learning experience. There's a
Right.
learning curve there. And learning about these things, you kind of realize where maybe your parents fell short in some ways.
Right. Because they were never taught themselves.
Exactly.
And so they can't really show it to you if they don't necessarily know how to do it for themselves.
And if they have, it's generational. If they
Yeah.
have like a insecure attachment style, whether if it's anxious avoidant or fearful avoidant,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to say ultimately gets passed down to you, but it's more likely to,
It's like a hurdle that you have to now overcome.
because they're going to continue the patterns that they know.
Yeah.
And if they know fearful avoidant patterns will be passed on to you.
Right. Yeah.
And it is, people talk about like generational curse,
Yeah.
and they're not wrong. Essentially, things do get passed down to you, and if you're aware of it, you
Yeah.
can try to overcome it.
Right. Well, that's actually a really interesting point. Classifying it as a curse. Is it considered a curse or is it really an opportunity to become better than those that came before you? And then like recreate, a new pathway for the people who come after you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It really is all about perspective, how you want to look at it. You
Mm-hmm.
can become aware of your attachment and either wallow in self-pity and be like, "Oh, my parents, they never did this for me, they never did that," or you can try to do better yourself for your children, for those down the line after you.
100%.
It really is ultimately up to you what you want to do with that information if you become aware of it.
Absolutely. And so I think it's a good point in time to even express to the viewers what the attachment styles are. So the ones we'll be talking about, there are 4, and I'll actually leave them for you guys at the bottom in the description, a little bit more of a detailed version of these. But the main ideal scenario would be a secure attachment, which is basically being comfortable in connection and closeness with someone while also having comfort in independence. So again, that would be, the overarching what we would strive to reach. And then there are a few others: anxious attachment, which Claire had mentioned, which is someone who is seeking reassurance as well as a little bit sensitive to some of those like relationship shifts. Is there anything particular you want to describe about anxious attachment?
I definitely resonate with anxious attachment. I would say I'm like classified in anxious attachment.
Okay.
It's you were always looking for that external validation, whether that's in like romantic relationships or platonic relationships. I think that's also very important to distinguish too,
Mm.
is these are not always, these are all relationships. A lot of people, you hear relationships and you automatically think like romantic, and
Yeah.
when your partner starts pulling away or whatnot. And that's definitely very important because those are very vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
relationships as opposed to platonic relationships, but it also shows up in platonic
Yeah.
relationships as well. And
Yeah.
it's essentially you feel threatened anytime there's some other factor that is like hindering or like getting in the way of the relationship. So let's say for a platonic relationship, your friend has a new friend or a new boyfriend. You might feel very anxious
Mm.
that they are going to take this person away from you, that you were not going to be this person's number one
Yeah.
like priority. And it it makes you spiral. It makes you want their validation, and it can be self-destructive if you are not aware, because you could be putting the blame, if you're
Elsewhere.
putting all the validation on someone else, you're also putting all the blame on them too,
Mm.
because you're detaching yourself and you're like, oh, this isn't, this is them, this is not
Yeah.
me. But if you become aware of it, it's a lot of it is you and how
Wow.
you choose to respond to
And I
things.
think that's a really important point as well, is like all of this, everything that we're talking about is just to help us individually become stronger within ourselves. Because no matter what, it all starts within. And the more that we can work on healing our inner strength and in our, inner child, the greater our relationships will be, regardless of whether they're romantic or friendships or whatever, so on. So it really helps us. And then there is avoidant attachment, which is really needing space or pulling back when things get a little bit too close. People want to be too close to you. You get a little scared and you're like, I'm going to separate myself. Any other bits on that?
Avoidant people, I also think, are misunderstood. I feel like that's a big term on like social media these
Mm,
days, where at least like my TikTok for you page
okay.
is a lot of particularly girls, but men too, talking about their partner or their quote unquote situationship being avoidant.
Okay.
And a situationship, I always put it in quotes because it's basically one person who's anxious and one person who's avoidant.
Mm-hmm.
And that anxious person wants to connect and they want that reassurance, and that
Yeah.
avoidant person has their bubble and they like it to a certain extent until you step in their bubble. And their realm of their bubble depends on the person. They could have, you know, anything like remotely personal could be like too much for them, and some people maybe they can go a little bit further, but ultimately they do not feel safe being vulnerable with other people. And that's just connecting. That's not in a physically intimacy, like physical
Yeah.
intimacy. It's someone seeing you for who you are,
Yeah. Which is scary.
which is scary.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It can be scary for a person who has a secure attachment, but the difference between a person with a secure attachment is they won't let that stop them
Mm-hmm.
from engaging in relationships, whereas avoidance, that's it for them. They will, their safety comes first and they are not going to engage in something where they feel unsafe. And this is mostly done unconsciously. They're not
Also, another great point
fully
by
aware.
Claire. Fabulous. So then, how would you then connect that to the final one, which is fearful avoidant, which is somebody who wants, really desires that closeness, but then also is scared of that closeness. And so you have that like push and pull dynamic.
Fearful avoidant is very interesting to me,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about how I learned about it.
Okay.
So when I first learned about it, they used the example of well, for all of these attachments, they talked about babies
Okay.
and when their parents leave. And this one just really stuck out to me because a baby who has a fearful avoidant attachment will be upset when their parent leaves. They will cry, it'll, like they won't calm down. It'll be very distressing for them.
Okay.
But then when their parent returns, they're angry with them.
Mm.
And if their parent like tries to comfort them and be close to them, they don't want their parent. They're angry and they
Because the parent left?
because the parent left. And they want to get away. And I also think if we're going off like this baby
Concept.
scenario
Yeah.
concept, for secure attached babies, they will be upset when their parents leave initially,
Mm-hmm.
but they are able to self-soothe and calm themselves down.
Mm.
And then when their parent returns, they're happy to see them, which is very different than the
Yeah.
fearful avoidant.
And it almost sounds like, like the fearful avoidant is taking the parent leaving as a personal attack on them. Like, maybe I don't feel loved, this person's leaving me, whatever it is, like you're saying, subconsciously that's playing in the mind, is then creating a fantasy or a story that then they're ended up like they're reliving, like they're creating for themselves. I mean,
Yes.
obviously it's a baby, so again, but adults do this as well. All
Yes,
people do this.
definitely. And it's confusing for all parties, I think, for the baby, for the mom, or for the caregiver,
Yeah.
as to just extreme reactions on both ends. Extreme reactions when they leave, extreme reactions when
Mm.
they come back, and not in a positive way, obviously,
Yeah.
on for either
Yeah.
side.
So you said that you're leaning toward, or you did at one point lean toward an anxious attachment style. Is that still the case?
I am definitely working on becoming more secure, and it takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
It really
Yeah.
does. I, at one point in high school, I think I was anxious in my platonic relationship attachment, but I think now I do have a more secure attachment with friends. It's in romantic relationships. I still struggle. My anxious attachment is still definitely
It's okay.
there, but it's a lot better now where I'm not as seeking that validation, and
Yeah.
I can kind of pause and take a step back and remind myself where validation comes from with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also really important too to not take everything so personally. And again, this is like years of practice. This
Yeah.
is way easier said than done, but I've started to shift it as more of like, does this person choose me? Does this person like me? To more, do I even like or
Mm.
want this person?
Amen. Yeah.
Because most of the time the answer is no.
Yeah.
You're like, they aren't able to give me what I need.
Yeah.
Why would I want them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And logically this makes so much sense. You're
Right.
like, "Oh, of course." But emotionally you still have that little those
Triggers.
those triggers
Yeah.
of you're anxious, you want
Yeah.
that closeness, that validation, and you can't give into it every single
Right.
time. You need to give it to yourself.
100%. I agree with that completely. And I think that that's really important. The more, and it goes back to what I said before, the more that we can find ourselves, the more that we can give ourselves that self love and, ground ourselves in our own strength, the easier it becomes to see when someone is not like meeting us at our standard, and like not necessarily accepting that, really setting better boundaries for ourselves, because the more that we can set those boundaries, the less likely that another person will come into our experience that is similar to the one who came before, right? So we're redirecting that energy towards something better that is more aligned to what it is that we want for ourselves, that we know we deserve. So
And that's kind of where that law of attraction workshop slides
there
in
you
here
go.
too.
Amen. Again, love
Yeah.
that.
All
So
connected.
it is all
It
connected.
is.
And I think for anybody who's questioning, like, oh, where do I sit on the spectrum? It's important to look at, how we do respond to those things we talked about, the closeness. Um, am I able to give somebody space without worrying what they're thinking or feeling? If somebody's showing me changes in their emotion, how am I responding? And it's a learning and it's a journey, but and we're not going to be perfect every step of this experience, but it's all about how can we become a little bit better than we were the day before.
Yes,
so
exactly.
so when it comes to dating specifically, have you noticed patterns in how you connect with people or the types of people that you've connected with?
I'm so glad you asked this question because my immediate answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
I have noticed a pattern where I have, again, not consciously, but always attracted or sought out men who are emotionally unavailable. And I kind of said this before how avoidance and anxious,
Yeah.
they fuel each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I have definitely noticed certain relationships I've had have been with avoidance, people who are more avoidant, where things were going good, we were getting to know each other. And I've also never been in a relationship too. I just want to like clarify and specify that. But any other talking stage or moments leading up to dating never happened because things got too real for the avoidant.
Yeah, and I would just take a step back and pause there, because I wouldn't even say that you've never been in a relationship. Like, this is a relationship. Every single interaction we have with another person is technically a relationship. So don't downplay it. You've had engagements and therefore you've had relationships, and it's how you're looking at it. It doesn't need to be defined in one particular way.
That is true. That is because I said this earlier, these attachments apply to
Exactly.
everything. In romantic relationships, I have seen more drastically that avoidant and anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in friendships, I think before in the past, maybe when I was younger in high school, when I really had no idea about like any of this and your hormones and your brain is changing and all these things,
Yeah.
maybe my friendships was a little bit more anxious in and attracted more avoidance. But I think as I got older, that kind of just plateaued, and I do seek better friendships. I've had friends I've been friends with for years, like long-term childhood friends, friends since I started college.
That's great.
I have a few friends that I met in high school or around high school time. So crazy, that's already like 5 6 years, which
The time does go quickly.
time goes by so
It'll
quickly.
only continue.
Yeah, right. um but I think romantically, I'm getting better with not seeking out those avoidance. I can kind of have that self-awareness of stop here.
Yeah.
This is not something that's going to be productive for either one of us because
Yeah.
it's not just about me in that scenario too. They're obviously not benefiting from it if I'm triggering
For sure.
their avoidant attachment.
If they're even able to see
Aware.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. And I've noticed as well over the years that I have patterns, and when it comes to friendships as well as romantic relationships, I think a lot of my romantic relationships align to the behaviors of my dad. And
Mm,
the types of people that I was attracting into my orbit had similar tendencies to my dad. And so obviously I'm not trying to date my dad, and I think the more that I strengthened myself and the more, again, I became aware, through practice and habit, the more I was able to say, oh, okay, this is not what I want for myself. And then like wean away from that and move towards something that like would be beneficial. And then with like relationships, I tend to be an overgiver, and I think it's so important to like give to people in the same capacity that you want to be given to. But
Mm,
sometimes people can't meet you there, and so then you're disappointed, and so you're trying to like continue to give, and you're not being met in the same way. So all of this, like I said before, is a way for us to just see ourselves fully and how we want to show up when it comes to partners in general. And then again, set those boundaries, trust our own judgment, and then make better choices that'll lead us to better relationships with people.
yeah, amen. Amen. That was beautifully said.
Thank you. Thank you.
It it takes a lot of work. It really does. And when I first learned about this 4 years ago, I was definitely way more anxious, where I feel like it was more noticeable, like for myself and for other people. That
Mm-hmm.
energy was just radiating from me.
Yeah.
Whereas now, maybe it's still there, but it's not as strong.
Mm.
And any I I hope and I think every day it does kind of go down like a little bit. I
Yeah.
am able to not put my worth and validation at the hands of other people that aren't going to give it to me and that don't
Yeah.
know how to give it
Yeah.
and don't know what they're holding.
For sure. That's a big one. And again, the journey's not linear, right? So it's like we can see ourselves taking 10 steps ahead, but sometimes we're going to have a couple steps that take us backward, and that's okay. As long as we acknowledge and we give ourselves that grace, because we're still moving
Yes.
forward regardless.
Mhm. Grace is a big one.
So does anything from your childhood feel connected to how you attach now? It's a good one.
Oh, that is a very good question. Um when we went out to dinner last month, I had mentioned to you my dad passed away when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my mom, and I'm really trying to find a way to not put blame on my mom. But she had to fulfill the role of like both caretakers essentially, which you're not going to be able to do in all areas.
Yeah.
She took care of us physically, like emotionally and mentally in some capacities, but also it fell short in other capacities too.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see my anxious attachment stemming from the fact that I never grew up with my dad. I never got that quote unquote male
Mm.
validation. And once I graduated high school and I was like more off in the world on my own a little bit, I
Yeah.
was trying to seek that male validation from other people in not healthy
Yeah.
ways. And when it wasn't going to be sustainable, I would get very anxious and wonder why these relationships weren't working out.
Yeah.
Why don't they like me like that? Why don't they want to commit? Why? And it was always like there's something inherently wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Not It was always about me being inadequate
The
and never
problem.
about this not being a relationship I legitimately want.
Right.
The other person, their limitations, what they're able to bring, their wants, their needs. It was always just there's something wrong with me. And
Mm-hmm.
I always found relationships because I had that energy that I was kind of putting out there unconsciously. I kept seeking relationships that brought that out. And then it would revalidate,
Yep.
oh, I'm not worth being in a romantic relationships because it's never worked out for me because of this, because of this, because of this. And I had past experiences that
Yeah.
validated that.
Yeah. That's a huge one. And I want to take a second and just let the viewers think about that for a minute. Like, what thought pattern do we have that's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. I know I've done it in certain ways. Claire, obviously, you just said you've done it. How do we stop that thought pattern and create a better feeling thought? Because the more that we can stop it in its track, the quicker we'll get to a better place. I mean, I know I'm thinking of something too that I was like, wow, I'm a heterosexual. I date men, and I had a pattern of thought that men couldn't be in a monogamous relationship, and I would
Mm.
consistently meet more men who would prove that to me in certain ways, and creating I was creating that, and I still believe like some people are that way for their own reasons. Not everybody wants to be in a monogamous relationship, and that's totally fine and fair. Nobody's telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing with your life. But I had that thought in my head, and I was creating more scenarios that were proving and validating that thought until one day I'm like, I'm not going to think that anymore. And does that thought still come into my head? 100%. 100%. But that's not the only thought there. Like, allow it to come in and allow it to go out.
Yes, you might not be able to help that being your first thought, especially if it is so ingrained in you, but you don't have to marinate on it and entertain it. It can float by.
Yeah.
And you can say, okay, that can be true in some circumstances, but it's not innately true
for sure
for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's not innately true for everybody,
which can definitely be very hard.
Yeah.
But
it's once you're staying consistent, again, it's the same concept. Stay consistent with it, because then you create that better outcome.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It is. It is 100% all connected. Your thoughts have a lot of power to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Power that they shouldn't have. I wish that they didn't have. But they do. They have a lot of power to them, and they can dictate. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there's the triangle, and it's thoughts, what is it? Sorry, I mentioned it and now I can't even give it to you, but it's okay. Like your thoughts will indicate your behavior and then what you do. It's all, and it's a triangle because it all comes back together, because then when you do that, that reinforces that thought, and then you're going back to this thing. I know it's thought, action. I'd have to look at it again.
I know actually what you're talking about too, but I can't pinpoint it right now. But I would play devil's advocate and say, because you were like, oh, I wish they didn't have as much power. Thank you. And I would try to get you to think differently about that, because the more that we lean into that, and the more that we can say, oh, well, I'm in charge of my own thoughts, and I'm going to think positive thoughts, and I can literally change my own reality. I can create my reality. How powerful is that? That's pretty magical.
That is. And you're right. I thank you for that little slap on the hands, because my thoughts can and will dictate my reality.
And so does everybody's.
And exactly, that's how you make it. That's either good, bad.
Yeah.
And even that is subjective.
Yeah, exactly. So good and bad is, how we're defining it.
Yeah.
So you were also talking about your energy. Have you ever been attracted to somebody based on how their energy felt to you, if it was grounding and safe?
I wish I could say I was attracted to someone because they felt grounding and safe.
Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of the time there was something in them that triggered something in me that I always wanted.
Okay.
And more in a like a wild way, kind of. I don't
Okay.
want to say like dangerous, but more in their energy was something that maybe I had or have like subconsciously, where I grew up, I was always like a good kid. I always got good grades, and I did find myself being attracted to guys that were a little rebellious, a little,
Less interested in the straight
yeah,
and narrow.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think part of me really wanted that. And I sought it out in other people.
Yeah.
And they happened to be more avoidant and not as invested, but it was a pattern. I definitely noticed it with several guys that even if like we had no major interaction or major engagement, I was attracted to guys that like almost like screams like trouble.
Very different from me.
Yes,
Okay.
very different from me.
Okay. And that's okay. Maybe that is what you needed at that time,
Yeah,
but you have evolved beyond that.
I definitely have. I think now I can be more attracted to people that do have that more consistent, safe energy.
Yeah.
I've never been in a romantic relationship with someone like that.
Yeah.
I do think I've had, or I do have, friends that are grounded and self aware. And I really, really admire that about them.
Yeah.
I have my one friend, she is just always able to like clock herself when she knows that she's like
That's good.
lying to herself or she's like full of
Wow.
it.
That's
And
great.
I it's so admire like that about her.
So an
She's
accountability partner for you.
yes. And there have been times too where I've joked and I said, maybe I'm the problem. And she'll look at me and she'll say, maybe a little bit. Maybe just like a little bit. And I'm
Well,
like, yeah.
I mean, I think that's an important thing as well, right? Like people always point the two fingers, but there's always one pointing back at us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we decide to point, we should look at ourselves too.
Yeah.
So, well, so have you ever, noticed people being drawn to you because of your grounded and safe or secure nature?
I have. And I don't think I will ever forget this moment.
Yeah.
I was at community college. It was also my first semester in school,
Okay.
and I was there was like chairs outside like the classroom, and I was sitting waiting like to go into class, and this girl came and sat down next to me.
Mm,
And she asked if she could sit there, and I was like, yeah, of course. This is also like in the middle of COVID too,
okay.
so we're all have to wear masks and
But she's
whatever.
like, hey.
And yeah, she was like, can I sit here? And I was like, yeah. Like I was going into class in probably like 10-15 minutes or whatever.
Okay.
And she told me so like she just started talking to me like so much like personal like information
Yeah.
about like her family dynamics, and like she has half siblings and like a stepdad or
Yeah.
like this whole just like very personal family. And I don't even know if I got her name, like just all of
She felt your
this.
vibe.
And she started talking about like her boyfriend and like all these, and I'm just like like
Yeah.
kind of baffled like that some random person is just like telling me
Latching on and
their family problems. I
yeah.
just was not expecting that. And I will just never forget that moment, because since then I've thought like there must be something in me that people find like comforting. For my friends have like come to me and like talked about like personal stuff, and that's good. That's one thing.
Right.
But just like some like random girl.
I mean, I would take that as a blessing, like that's a
Yeah.
superpower that I don't think, your average person would have. If someone feels safe and comfortable just by your presence alone, that is a huge positive in my book.
Yeah.
because you can really make an impact on people's lives just by giving them the space to feel loved and accepted and heard. Maybe it sounds like she really needed it at that time.
Yeah, just I think just someone to listen
Yeah,
to her.
she probably needed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, cuz I was just like, wow,
What is
like
this? Yeah.
there's in not in like a judgmental way, but just like shock
Yeah.
cuz I don't think I have ever done that.
And that's
So
okay. Mm-mm.
it was a very like eye-opening moment for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I think this also plays into the whole what we're attracting. And you were talking before about like your anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, relationships. And I'm just thinking, I have had many men want to like experience me, in a romantic way and then not be able to meet me.
Mm,
And I think it's because they see something in me that they maybe wish that they had for themselves or like had within themselves, and they don't have it yet. And so they're attracted to that. But then when it comes down to it, they can't necessarily meet me there. And that's when like they'll pull back.
mm,
And so they'll get scared or so on, whatever. The scenario can change. But I'm sure that you maybe experienced some of that too. And you can experience that in regular relationships as well. It doesn't have to just be romantic, but there's there's something happening there. And I think that's also the whole awareness component. Like, okay, the more I become aware of what's happening, this is a pattern in my connections with men. How can I stop projecting out that to those types of people and like set my boundaries and say I don't want that anymore. I want somebody who's going to meet me where I am and be able to like hold themselves there and then raise with me. So that's a learning too.
you you learn so much through that, and you can talk about it and like listen to podcasts about it, but like learning, like going through
Yeah,
it is how you like learn about it and how
sure.
you decide to keep continuing that pattern or if you're gonna rise above.
That's totally true.
And it sounds like you're rising above, you know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's taken time, and I
Oh
and I
yeah.
think that's what's so important to tell the viewers here as well is like this is years of practice and like self-reflection and introspection, and I think it's so important. I don't think enough people take the time to really look inward. We always just move from person to person, place to place, thing to thing, and it's like just take a
Mm,
second to consider how am I feeling, what's happening within me, and like if it's something that doesn't sit right with me, how do I change that? Because we don't need to stay the same. I mean, we could if we like who we are,
yeah.
but there's always something that like can change.
Chances are we all have things we can
Yeah,
improve upon.
yeah, for sure. So, what helps you feel secure or emotionally safe in a relationship now?
Ooh, that's a good question. Being more on the anxious side, it's important that I have my independence
Yeah.
and I can, for lack of a better term, detach and have my own self time. Because
Okay.
there have been plenty of times, and I can think of a few, like right off the top of my head, where I needed my alone time and I was kind of getting burnt out,
Yeah.
but a guy I was interested in wanted to see me and that was exciting. I was like, "Oh, like I'll go see him. He wants to see me."
Yeah.
Whereas it's okay to say no. It's okay if they're maybe a little disappointed because sometimes you really just you do need that night to yourself, that moment to yourself. And especially if you had already committed to yourself, I'm going to give myself this time off. Or
Yeah. Again, you're setting setting boundaries
Yeah.
and sticking to those boundaries, which is really important.
Yes. And it also helps you just have that sense of self. You're not putting your identity into some other person.
Absolutely.
And me just being more anxious,
Yeah.
having that time to myself, one helps me with clarity and just seeing things for what they are and who they are and how they're unfolding.
Right.
But also just so I don't put so much on other people.
Yeah. There's
Just,
some music outside.
yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I think, again, this is a personal journey. How can we navigate what it is that we're experiencing and feeling, and then create greater secure relationships and connections with other people? And so, based off of everything that we've talked about here, is there anything that like you feel we should leave the viewers with?
Having, no matter what attachment style you have, that doesn't necessarily make it quote unquote good or bad. Because you hear secure attachment, and obviously that's optimal.
Yeah.
That's what is most effective in relationships. And that's what's healthiest. But being more avoidant and being more anxious isn't your fault. It's something that, not that you were born with, but that when you were born was automatically developed since then. Like the moment that you entered this world, you are, attachments are being built, and it's
Yeah.
something that you have no conscious awareness of.
Yeah.
And so it's not your fault, but you can also improve yourself. You are
Yeah.
not stuck, and you shouldn't be stuck if you aren't fulfilled in your relationships and you don't feel fulfilled in areas of your life. And also that it is a long journey, that you are here for life. It is something you are going to not struggle with, but come across on the daily.
Yeah.
You, it's kind of when we were talking about thoughts earlier. You can have your first thought, you don't have to entertain, it can flow.
That's right.
And it takes a lot of practice to just not overanalyze and nitpick everything, and just, it's just a thought. It
Absolutely.
can drift in the wind.
The name of this game is giving yourself some grace, acknowledging that these are just definitions. Really, it's not defining us as like who we are as human beings. It's a directive intended to help show us a particular way that we may be behaving in the world, and how we can shift those behaviors if and when we choose and want to. So thank you so much, Claire, for coming on the pod and being a part of our lovely group. And it's been so wonderful. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Jen. I'm really, obviously very passionate. I'm glad I was able to talk about it. I hope the listeners, even if it's just one person, that they took something from this today and they can improve their life and learn something.
Bless you, Claire.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good day.